And speaking of winter, Calvin, now the word Christmas is being banned. Tell us about this. Is unbelievable. Tell us about this.
This is so frustrating. These well-intentioned but misguided civil servants. It's always the case, isn't it? Public bodies, they always want to do good by, cancelling other people's fun. And they're saying at this point, we can't use the word Christmas because it might cause offence to minorities. And I find that quite patronising, actually, as a minority myself. This idea that we can't, hear a word that brings faith and hope to people because it might cause offence. No, that's a nonsense. First of all, Great Britain is a Christian country, and people will say, oh, well, there are not as many Christians now as there used to be. That doesn't matter. That's not why it's a Christian country. It's a Christian country. Culturally, our culture comes from Christianity, our values, our morality, our legal system is entwined with the faith. We've got the Lord's spiritual. And we have an established church, the Church of England. So you can't separate the two at this point. So the idea that we should somehow not use or tread on eggshells around that word is ridiculous. But I've also found, growing up in this country, that people of different faiths actually support the Christian faith because they know that Christians have a set of values and they know what those values are. Whether people are Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, we all get on because we all know what we stand for. So this idea that other people are going to be offended, and what they mean by other people is Muslims. Let's be honest, they don't want the Muslims to be offended. So let's not call it a Christian time of year anymore. Let's call it something else instead of Christmas. That is a nonsense. This is a battle that's coming from America. It's a cultural identity politics battle from America. We're importing it as we always do. We need to stop that. Let the Americans have their own little dramas, and we've got plenty of our own over here. Christmas time is Christmas time, not holiday period, not festival period, not happy holidays. It's Merry Christmas. And I wish all of your viewers, it's Advent now, so Merry Christmas.
Definitely, and keep saying that. I agree with you totally. The only way to defeat this kind of lunacy is to go the other way and just say Merry Christmas to everyone you can possibly meet as often as you possibly can. But speaking of wokeness and the battle against wokeness, there does seem to be, and you and I have talked about this before, that there does seem to be, and you particularly with your background in education, there is, ultimately it is the parents of the pupils who slowly wake up and see how their children or grandchildren, but their children primarily are being indoctrinated, and they speak up and they say enough is enough. And we've seen now, we don't know all the full details of this story, but someone who was regarded as one of the wokest headmistresses in Britain at a school, the American school, I think it's called, in London, who's been indoctrinating people, I guess, in some of the concepts of critical race theory that you mentioned. She's suddenly up and resigned, and could woke ideology and parents be the reason why she's suddenly up and gone, despite having a salary of £400,000?
Yes, absolutely. And I used to work next door in a school next door to the American school. It's always had a good reputation. It's a very expensive school. Thierry Henry sends his kids there. Lots of professional footballers and celebrities send their kids there. But what we're seeing is in these schools where the head teachers and, again, the misguided, well-intentioned metropolitan liberal elites push this critical race theory, they push identity politics into the curriculum in order to feel like they're making a difference. And where we're seeing this, we're actually seeing parents stand up. And in this case, I believe it was ethnic minority parents that stood up and said, no, our kids will not be taught that they are oppressed. Our kids are more privileged than most other kids in this country, and quite right too. And they said, we don't want this. We don't want you peddling that black and minority ethnic kids are oppressed and victims, and that white kids are somehow oppressors in this country, where we have equality under the law, and especially in a school where you're paying tens of thousands of pounds to send your kids to every year. It's one of the most privileged schools in the country. We don't want it, and that's what we have. Parents standing up. We need more of that, because education is a parent's role first and foremost. School is supplementary to that, so we should not let the state take over from a parent's role and indoctrinate kids into a set of values that we don't believe in. Parents need to stand up, say, actually, these views that the school is pushing are against the values that I believe, against the values that I want my child to have. I don't want it, thank you very much. And I'm not in favour of cancelling, but this head teacher has cancelled herself, so it's all good. She gets paid enough. I'm sure she's saved enough to get on with whatever she wants to do now, a virtue signal elsewhere.
Well, you're right, and it is parent power, and I think more and more parents are realising that across the Western world, where they don't really realise, Calvin, how deep this sort of so-called anti-racist teaching goes, which is in itself ultimately racist, teaching your kids to be racist, to judge people on the colour of their skin, the complete opposite of what Martin Luther King preached. Correctly. And on the subject of race, just quickly, Calvin, cricket. And we've had this announcement that England will stop play during the Ashes if racial abuse from the Australians from the crowds. We're apparently all racists here, according to Jack Root or whatever his name is. So they've said, the Australians are all racist. We'll stop play if there's any racial abuse. What do you make of this story?
So, Rowan, I actually like this one. I think this is a good idea. So, rather than these idiots taking a knee and saying, virtue signaling and say, we're going to stamp racism out of sport by, subjugating ourselves in front of each other, that doesn't do anything. We know that it's a nonsense. But this actually could make a difference. They're saying, if we experience racism, we'll stop the game. And I think that's fair enough. That's actually going to take action rather than just appearing to take action. That's what we need more of. If there is, I don't know if there is any racism in the sport, but if there is, this is a way to clamp it out. Say, actually, if you guys are racist towards us, we won't play. Simple as. And I much prefer that than people saying, you're all racist, so we're going to take a knee and we're going to virtue signal on everyone's behalf. So let's see more of this in sport, I think. I know it's controversial for a person like me, but if there is something to be done about it, do it.
I agree with you there, Calvin, but there's always that slight problem that someone might misunderstand what is yelled out by, because sledging in cricket and from sports, Australians with our thick Australian accents, after a few beers, we might say something which is not meant to be anything of any cultural or ethnic basis whatsoever, but is heard the wrong way. Suddenly the game stops and away we go. But we shall see. We shall see. Listen, Calvin, great to see you, and we'll keep saying Merry Christmas, and that's great advice. And I'll speak to you again next week. Thank you so much for coming on Inside the News. Merry Christmas indeed.
God bless.